Hey, this is CT for SearchAnyway. I'm at DemoCamp Montreal to see what other people in town are doing. Let's go check it out.
Hi everybody, my name is Matthew Velez. This is Carl Mercier, and together with Camilo Lopez in the back, we are Carabunga, and we make Defensio. Defensio is a spam filter for social web applications. Now, not all social web applications, only those that expose kind of a public front, those web applications that may be inclined to receive spam. And so we believe that commenting on blogs, generally speaking, is broken. Broken? What do we mean by that? Well, from the user standpoint, if you use blogs, you may note that often you either have to fill in a CAPTCHA, you have to be a registered user, sometimes you have to fill out a silly cognitive test, like what is 2 + 5, in order to leave a comment on a blog, which we find annoying. Also, sometimes your comments will be lost, or they'll be waiting in a moderation queue. We just think that's silly and kind of unfortunate and unnecessary. From a blogging standpoint, well, if you blog, you're going to be very familiar with the blog spam problem, because it is bloggers that get to see the full force of the blog stream that hits your blog. For those of you that might not be familiar, we do have some numbers to kind of indicate what the problem looks like. I am a fan of slides. I'm not going to hide behind that. But the slide is pretty, I think, so please bear with me. You'll see on the graph kind of the nature of how the blogosphere has evolved. In blue, you see the growth of blogs over time, and in red, you see the growth of comment spam. Now, what's significant about this is that comment spam, if you look at the time horizons, the problem has really been only around for about a year. And so it's a relatively new problem, which explains why not a lot of people are tackling it, other than Akismet, which many of you may be familiar with. Secondly, if you look at the graph, you'll notice that the growth of blogs started to slow late last year, but the growth of comment spam has just continued to accelerate. So that suggests that the problem is actually getting worse. So it's kind of bad news. But an interesting question to ask is, well, does bloggers' experience actually bear this out in the real world? So to give you some context, I have a comment behind me from Robert Scoble. Many of you will know him. He says that commenting and blogging is broken. So actually, I stole that from him. And if you look at the bottom, he says there's no way to actually go through and look at false positives in his comments. So he's getting really annoyed, and there's plenty of blog posts from Robert himself saying how bad he thinks Akismet is performing. And this is only 3 months ago, actually, that he said this. But it's not just Scoble that's complaining. Actually, back in January, our very own instigator, Ben Yoskovich, said that Akismet should separate out obvious spam from questionable spam. And so Ben wanted action, and we thought we'd deliver action. But before I get into the demo, I should say that the problem is actually worse than this, because quite recently, bloggers are starting to turn off comments on their blogs because this problem is so bad. Mark Andreessen, who's the founder of Netscape, he has a great blog. He recently shut off comments because comments were just becoming too much for him to manage. And another blogger that I follow, Donna Bogatin, who wrote a blog called Digital Markets, she just recently turned off comments as well because of the comment spam. So now we're getting into a situation where I think the conversation in the entire blogosphere is being heard. And so now it's time for a demo where I'm going to show you kind of what our solution is. I thought a good way to do this demo is to first actually look at what Akismet does. And so behind me, Carl is going to be showing you what Akismet looks like. Those of you who blog on WordPress will be very familiar with this screen. A few things to note about this. The comments are all really long, really offensive. They're ordered chronologically, which is a huge part of the problem. Okay? If you need to go in and find a false positive, so a good message that's actually buried in there, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. How do you do it? And so we've developed Defensio that I think you'll agree does a much better job. So Carl's just deactivating Akismet and activating Defensio. And this is what the spam box for your blog, or what we call quarantine, looks like running under Defensio. So there's a few things that I think just kind of pop off the page here. First is just kind of the information density that we achieve with Defensio. You'll notice that each comment is we just show a single line, because we feel like a lot of the comments it's pretty obvious immediately if they're spam or not, just based on that first line, based on the author, based on their email address or whatnot. And so you can actually click to see the full comment if you want to expand it or collapse it. So it makes spam management a lot more efficient just because of the sheer information density we get on a page. Secondly, and probably most importantly, is this spamminess measure that we have in the upper left corner. And so we're actually sorting spam based on the spamminess value, which is a computed value on how likely each comment is to be spam. So that's computed by our filter and reported to the plugin here. And why this is important is that by sorting those messages by their likelihood of being spam, we can display at the top of your spam box only messages that are least likely to be spam, i.e. most likely to be false positives. And lo and behold, at the top of the spam box is a comment by our very own Camilo Lopez. That's a legitimate comment. And so we can actually click restore to retrain our filter to indicate to the filter that this was actually a real comment so that the filter doesn't make the same mistake twice. So that's pretty nifty, I think. A couple other features that I'd like to highlight. We have a hide obvious spam checkbox at the top. And so you can use that checkbox. Actually, you can set a threshold in the plugin, and above which all that spam is going to be hidden from view. So messages above 90% or 80% spam are almost always spam, so we don't want you to have to worry about that. We only want you to have to worry about a tight, short spam box that you can actually go through and manage. And finally, at the bottom of the plugin, we provide statistics, because we believe in full transparency. We want our users to be able to see how well the filter is performing. So we show you the accuracy, we show you the number of total comments that have come in, the number of false positives, false negatives, and whatnot. And so I guess a natural question that comes to mind is, well, how well does our filter perform? Well, we've been running it on Ben's blog for several weeks now, and based on about 15,000 comments, we've been running at about 99.5% accuracy, which I think is pretty good. And important to note is that accuracy is actually improving every day. Every time Ben retrains a comment as a false positive, the filter gets better and better. And that learning actually happens in a personalized way, so that his learning will actually be different than the other users that use this service.